Hello, we're looking today at the Buck Onset. This knife I bought for myself from Blade HQ for $180 US. This is a fairly new offering from Buck. It's made in America. It's an 8.25 inch long knife with a 3.75 inch blade, so it's about 207 millimeters all up and about an 85 millimeter cutting edge there, or blade there. You've got a stainless steel frame lock on one side and then a piece of G10 forming your other handle scale. You've got some standoffs, you've got a deep carry pocket clip as well, and you've got a over travel stop as well. Just meow. T10s to take it apart and T6s to take the smaller hardware down. In this film I'm going to steel test the knife. I've sharpened it. I'll show you the result of the steel testing I did with a 17-degree mirror polished edge. I'm going to take this guy apart because I really want to know what this white stuff I'm staring at is in there. And then I'm going to show you some thoughts on the knife, which frankly I think are fairly important to know if you like the same kind of knives as me. Of course, this is just one knife I bought for myself from Blade HQ. It may not be indicative of all the Buck Onsets out there in the world. That being said, let's get into the review. I'll show you how it looks next to some other knives so you can get a bit of a picture of the thing. Alrighty, let's get to it. Get her done. Alrighty, so this is the Buck Onset 0040's edge retention test. Now I put a pretty good 17-degree edge on using the new Work Sharp angle precision adjust angle sharpener. God, I get these names confused. And it was a fine edge, but I want a comparable edge, so I've gone and got my KME and just gone over it pretty much. And it turned out, yes, it was a good little test of the angle keeping of the Work Sharp. It was exactly the same as the KME, so kind of confirms that the angle was more or less correct, within what the human eye can achieve anyway, and what my angle app on my phone can measure. So yeah, nice mirror polish on there now. I went up to I think a 0.1 micron leather strop, so now it's nice and mirror shiny, as I like to do all of my testing edges with. So we're going to cut twisted sisal rope with this guy until it no longer slices a held sheet of paper, as is the edge test that I regularly conduct. So right now it is a very sharp knife. A3 sheets today, jeez. Really nice. Push cuts, slices through, no hiccups, good edge. So we're going to cut until it no longer does that. And yeah, being from Buck, which are generally known for having good edge retention and good heat treatment and things like that, and being S45VN, yeah, I'd be hoping it goes over 350. That's a rough. I hate to try and predict what's going to happen, but yeah, that's what I'm hoping anyway. So we will see. This blade, and again, it was reaffirmed by me putting it on the KME. This blade came very crooked. The flat grind is uneven. The edge bevel, when you looked at it from the side profile, had a wobble in it, which I've since got out. So I took a fair bit of material of this stuff to get this test edge. So Yeah, it's very, very thick behind the edge though. There's nothing I can do about that. I'd need to do a full-on regrind. I could probably get my workshop, probably maybe do it with this, but probably rather something larger anyway. But yeah, it really needs thinning behind the edge. So whilst the absolute edge will cut very nicely because it is 17 degrees and it's just higher because there's a bit more meat behind it. It's kind of what's going on there. Anyway, we'll see how much it cuts. Be back soon with an answer. Cool. 425. Result on the S45VN on the 0040 Onset. Alright, so the main problem I have with the Buck Onset is that it is very thick behind the edge, and being thick behind the edge is a problem for a knife, and it's something that you can't remedy at the home level really without really specialized equipment, as in not just sharpening equipment. So the Spyderco Para 3 here, this is a thick, well, relatively thick flat ground knife as well, but it is thinner behind the edge. They've chosen a more acute angle to get from this point to this point, and as such, when you pinch your fingers here just behind where the apex is, your fingers are much closer together than when you do the same on the Buck Onset. You can feel the width. So what the Buck Onset is closer to having is the lines are closer to being parallel for longer, and then they rather suddenly become an edge. And that's what makes a knife thick behind the edge. So say your Para 3, spine is here, you've got two flat parts going down to there, and then there's the edge. And then the Onset is, even though it's the same, you know, let's play devil's advocate and say it's the same thickness, even though it's a little bit thinner actually, the lines are straighter down. They are still leading towards each other, but then there's the edge on the end. So it makes it for so when you're pushing through material, you get a slight shoulder here, and it's not something that's crazy. It's not going to ruin every cut that you make with the knife, but it's definitely something you feel, especially when I do something like my rope cut test. Having a really sharp edge, and both of these absolute, you know, they're right on the tip of the edge for sure. Both of these could be comparably sharp, but the cuts still won't feel as nice, and the edge life won't be as long because there isn't really a great deal you can do about all this space here and here. You need to actually do a full regrind and regrind it. So from the top, it's going down more abruptly towards the edge rather than having, you know, you really don't want a knife, the less like this your knife is, with two parallel lines and then a big fat edge, the better. All right. For a start, to put a 17 degree on an edge like that, you need to almost shave it back to here, so you'd end up with a very fragile apex. But also, it's just going to cut terribly, even when it is here. Even if you do a huge bevel on there, you're still going to have this very sort of heavy shoulder that's all the material is going to sort of bind up on. And in other words, these are kind of hyperbolic terms, binding up and whatnot. But what I'm saying is you definitely can feel the difference between a thinly ground behind the edge flat grind knife and the Buck Onset, which is kind of thick and clumsy in terms of as far as edges go. And you can see here, look how this is a 17 degree edge and this is a 17 degree edge. And you can see how wide that apex is compared to the Para 3, and you can see how uniform the flat grind on the Para 3 is compared to the Buck Onset. Put it into a machine where it does the same thing on either side, and when it looks like that and when it looks like that, this extra millimeter or so here means that this line here is a little bit more close to being parallel. So you're getting, the effect is basically spine, straighter line, and then a more angled line, and then your edge. And it does mean that when you need to get your edge to 17 degrees, you're gonna have to take more off of this side to get it there. And that's exactly what's happened in the buck onset, and you can see it illustrated here. So it's a bit of a disappointment, to be honest, and not a particularly good use of a really good steel like S45VN either, which can hold acute edges at thinner blade stocks, you know, quite well. So just something I thought being able to illustrate might help. Something I will touch on that is sort of common stomping ground in buck reviews is that there is a forever warranty on all these buck knives. I'm not sure if it's all of them or if it's just the American made ones, but there is a forever warranty that if something goes wrong with it, they are generally regarded as a pretty good warranty service by most folks. And I'm saying most for a reason. I've used the warranty once myself and it was fine. I dropped my compadre camp knife, I think on the ground or something, and the tip bent over. I sent it to them and they sent it back to me. They'd resharpened it, kind of the tip had caught up. So it shortened the knife a little bit, but it was fine. It was a fine service. It was free. I think apart from the shipping, I paid for the shipping because I'm in Australia, and that's another thing about using warranty services overseas. It's often a couple of months round trip rather than a week or two, which you may get in the States. That being said, I've been waiting for it. I didn't really just want to make a video about it because it seemed like needlessly confrontational, but just one of my good friends in the knife world had this buck marksman, and marksman's obviously one of my favorite knives, probably my favorite buck knife. And his marksman here has a point here which collides with the inside of the handle. It's a pretty, you know, it's a fidgety knife, and it is designed to flick open and shut like so. It's made so you pull the knife up and then you have to snip it down past a bit of a closing spring detent sort of thing, which is just how the lock interface works. And his collides with a piece of the handle inside and makes a dull spot on the blade. And so my friend sent this one in. I've seen the warranty claim. He basically said exactly what the problem was. They sort of just resharpened it and sent it back without doing anything about the problem. So of course the problem is comes screaming back as soon as you close the knife a couple of times. So just, you know, it's not the bulletproof, amazing, you know, everyone wins service. If I was a knife company, I probably would have just copped it on the chin and sent a new knife back and said, sorry, yeah, that one's just defectable, and maybe you could sell it as a second or something like that and shorten the, you know, give it a good sharpen, a fair way back so it stops colliding. I don't know. So just a bit of balanced info there. My personal buck warranty experiences have been fine, but I just thought it's always good to give the full gamut, and I did have an opportunity. I've got the actual knife. He was so like, because it sucks, you get it from Australia, you get a knife back and it's not fixed. The thought of what, you could send it again, no. So he was so dejected, he was just like, I don't even want this knife anymore, and sent it to me. And I thought it'd be worth calling up about it, because it's, yeah, as I said, I didn't want to make a full-on video about it. It's not quite worth that, but definitely worth raising that not every warranty service is perfect either. Alrighty, let's get this guy open. It's just been getting grittier and grittier as I've gone on. So number T10 for the pivot. I want to see what these washers are. I got a feeling they're bloody Teflon. T6 for the scale screws. This guy off. Oh no, it's, gosh, it's got some weird ass grease in there that's just caught every, there's like white creamy grease in there. It's just caught like every bit of dust. See, it's like toothpaste. Right, well, that's what it looks like inside anyway. A pair of these greasy white washers. I mean, I guess it's working a little bit, but geez, that's excessively, look how much of it's in there. It's just like, anyway. So that's what was in there that was making it go all gritty and bindy. So I'll probably clean that out and put in some knife pivot lube or something instead. right. So that's the inside of the knife. Frame looks are good. They're very simple to take apart and maintain. There you go, 2 standoffs there, 1, 2, pocket clip on the other side. Yeah, was the clips, the pivots are D-shaped pivot, so you don't have to worry about it free spinning. That all looks fine, and I'm glad that there's ball bearings, because I thought that white stuff was like a white Teflon washer. See the detent track there is like, I guess it's got a bit of wiggle room in there. I don't know. There you go. So yeah, pretty simple construction, all fits together fairly well. Alright, so I don't particularly like my Buck Onset. Even if it didn't have the flaws I'm about to go on about, it'd still be an extremely basic frame lock flipper knife, something that's existed in the knife market for, 15 to 20 years now. Knives almost exactly like this have been around. G10, stainless steel. I think Zero Tolerance started doing this in 2006, It's, it's not particularly revolutionary in any sense. And then what's more annoying is that the blade wasn't good. So the part of the knife that I enjoy the most is the blade. Some people say the handle is the most important part. Some people like to just play with and flick their knives and look at them as, functional art pieces, whatever. I think for a production knife, I like the more tangible aspects of it, and I think a blade that cuts well through material is the bee's knees. That gives me the fizz. And this just doesn't. The blade came bad from the factory, like it was full of waves and wobbles. The primary grind is crooked, so I'll never be able to get an even looking edge. And then maybe that's a superficial thing, I don't know. But it's too thick behind the edge as well, so you can do a flat grind, as I showed you that Spyderco do. You can do a flat grind that is still thin behind the edge, even with relatively thick blade stock. That's fine too, but they just haven't done that there. These lines stay too close to parallel for too long, and then they become an edge rather suddenly, and no matter how sharp that edge is, making a cut through something is going to feel less nice than with something that is thin behind the edge. So it's just nothing that I can really ever reconcile with this knife. I don't have the skills or equipment to do a regrind on it, and that's about what you would need to get it performing like even a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, let alone something else. And let's be frank here, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is a knife that is in this size and price range and is just done a whole lot better. Even though the steel is S30V, which isn't as nice as S45VN, the S30V in that knife is presented to you in a more usable way. Like it's a steel that, nice steels should be presented nicely so they perform well. It's not really getting what you want out of, why go and get a really nice steel if you're going to put it in a blade that, cuts badly. So yeah, I'm not loving this guy at all. It's just very, very neutral, very, very mediocre at best. And then just the fact that I had to do a fair bit of work, remove a fair bit of material to get a working edge, and even one that's not looking well because of inherent flaws in the factory grind, just doesn't do it for me. If it was a super fun fidgety knife, that might bring back some, some love for it. I mean, I don't love the paramilitary series, and this is a para 3, but these knives are fun to play with at least, and they feel really well made, and they're all, you know, generally come really nicely centered and all that, whereas this didn't come centered. The pivot is full of that weird white grease that just attracts every bit of dirt and dust and makes it like a grindy, crunchy pivot after, well, for me it was a few days. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry Buck, sorry guys who love Buck knives and wanted this to be great. This one here that I got, I don't think it's great. Look, if you get one that's ground really well, ground thin, ground evenly, I guess you've got a functional, pretty practical, I mean, I guess generally well-built knife. Like, I don't ever feel like this knife's going to fold on my hand or fail or anything like that. But the things that I seek in knives are just not here. And so I'm just not overly positive on the Buck 0040 Onset. Sorry to say, but that's how I feel. Anyway, that's the review. I guess I will stick to my Buck Marksman as my modern Buck. I just feel like so many Buck reviews get in this weird patronizing bent, and yeah, it happens with Gerber as well. Companies that have historically been a bit stuck in the past or whatever, just kind of patronizing, like, oh, good job, Buck. Look, it's really good to see you having a go at making a good knife. And it's a company it's still a largish like a decent sized company that has been in the knife game for so long that it should know how to do these well. And the thing about Buck is, this is a Buck 119, and without sounding too much like a certain uncle, this cuts really well because it's got a hollow grind that is really well done, nice thin behind the edge blade with a lot of edge life in it. You pinch this guy here, you almost feel your other finger. Like, it's so thin and it works so well, and your Buck 110 does the same thing. You know what, guys? I'm gonna say it. Maybe Uncle Randy was onto something when he basically just drew the Buck 110 blade. Maybe just put that blade on this handle. Put a thin, hollow ground clip point blade on here. You'll have a bit of your tradition and culture in there, and you'll have a blade that actually bloody works as well. So there we go. Buck Onset. Sorry. See you in the next video. Goodbye.